Welcome to Midlife Moves, where we're figuring out this whole midlife thing one day, one workout, and one what the hell just happened moment at a time. I'm Heather, and if you're navigating career shifts, fitness goals, parenting teenagers, or just wondering when the hell we became the grown-ups, you're in the right place. Let's talk about the real stuff, no filters, just honest conversations and a little bit of chaos. Let's get into it. Hi. Welcome to another episode of Midlife Moves. I'm your host, Heather Francis. Later in this episode, you are going to hear from Dr. Jila Senemar. She is an OBGYN from Miami. We are going to talk about perimenopause. I know I say it at every episode. I'm so excited for you to hear her interview because she just is... I got so much information out of the 30 minutes of talking to her that I sprinkle it into random conversations. So I'll just be talking to someone. I'll be like, did you know that estrogen affects your cardiac system too? And they're like, okay, Heather. All right. Okay. I hit stop on the recording with her and I never felt like more of a mouth breather. She's just dynamic and smart. And she is, I'm so excited for you guys to hear her. But since the topic is perimenopause, you're just going to hear a little bit of my experience with it. And I'm laughing already because, one, I had a conversation with my producer, Liam, earlier today, and I know that we talked about this a little bit, and he was like, you don't need to apologize to me. But I'm going to preemptively apologize to Liam because he has to listen to all of this, and he's never going to look at me the same again. I'm 45. So maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I started noticing all these things happening. So I was gaining weight and my period got really, really heavy and I was having wild mood swings. My sex drive was affected and there was a lot of dryness. I just didn't have, the drive just wasn't there anymore. So all of these things, the weight gain could have been a lot of things, but the things that had always worked for me to lose weight, I was always just very lean, and it used to be if I put on a couple pounds, I would do something simple and it would just take it off. So I would cut lattes out for a couple weeks and it would just it would just even everything out. And nothing was working with this. I had this extra weight that I was just carrying. The periods weren't just heavy. They were life altering. We have Valley Forge National Park is very local to us. So there's a 5-mile loop, and in that 5-mile loop, there's maybe 4 bathrooms that you can walk. You can walk this loop. There was a time that I was mid-cycle and I was doing this walk and I had to stop at every single bathroom to do a complete change. I soaked through everything at every bathroom stop. The mood swings. There are key people in my life who, when I start to get unhinged enough, they're like, how many days until your period? And it is 8 days. My PMS starts 8 days. My mood associated PMS starts 8 days prior to my period. And I can go in as soon as I start with the crazy, I know I can go into my period tracker app and it's 8 days. That's my trigger point. And then, the dryness and the libido stuff. My husband and I always had a very healthy sex life. And then all of a sudden it just dried up. A lot of these things could have been explained away. I kind of explained away a lot of them for other reasons, right? I'm overwhelmed. There's we've got a ton of kids. We've got the house. I was touched out, so with the kids, that's a lot of emotional energy. So that could explain, there's different elements that could be explained. Individually, there was a million different things that would have explained any one of those things that were going on. But then I was talking to my girlfriend about it. And as I was talking, just I'm experienced this and this and this. And then I was like, oh, I know what this is. I know exactly what this is. And so that's when I figured out it was time. So at some point I went to my doctor and I just kind of told him, this is what I'm experiencing with the bleeding. And this is, these are the other things that I'm experiencing. And he was like, well, you're too young for menopause and I don't even think that he, said the words perimenopause. And I was like, well, I don't know how accurate that is, but okay, but the bleeding is the main issue. So, he did ultrasounds. He started doing ultrasounds. He started doing all kinds of testing just to make sure there wasn't something else going on. And of course, there wasn't anything else going on. But he did find cysts on my right ovary, which I have a history of dealing with. I've had previous abdominal surgeries to remove them, and it's a thing. We had to go in and he wanted to remove that ovary. And then at the same time, I said, okay, well, let's just like take the tubes out because I can't have kids anymore anyway. And so since I was going under anyway, we just did the whole like reproductive makeover, and we did the uterine ablation at the same time, which did solve the bleeding. I will say this about the ablation. I never would have done it. That is something that is typically done while you're awake. There was no way I would have done that awake. So I only had it done because I was having all these other things done at the same time. And while it has changed the amount that I bleed, it's only it doesn't affect your hormones. So like it doesn't stop all the other stuff. It's simply the amount you bleed. And also I've had really bad cramps since then. I don't know if the cramps are perimenopause and the timing is just kind of what it is, or if it's because of the ablation, because I have heard stories about other women having the ablation and then in turn having, these cramps. Anyway, that was my experience with it, in case anybody else is, thinking of having that done, if that's on the table for anyone else. So, those are the things. So that is what I was able to do about the bleeding. And then for everything else, hormones are not an option for me. After my stroke, hormone-related therapies are just not on the table for me. I would have to go through I would have to be cleared by a series of doctors, which is something that I may or may not do. It's just not something that I'm actively doing right now. But it's something that I should probably start looking into more. And I'm not going to give somebody, I have no opinion of it for other people. So if that's a journey that you want to go on, that's a journey that's worth exploring. I think that you should definitely explore it. But it's just not what I'm doing yet. What I am doing is I'm doing strength training. I am making sure I'm taking the appropriate supplements. I'm making sure my nutrition's on point and I'm eating enough protein and drinking the water and all of the things that are really mundane, but they make a difference long term. I mean, it's not exciting. And some of you are either saying, oh, I feel okay, so some of this I can relate to. And some of you are probably saying, she needs a doctor. And I'm not sure if it's a gynecologist or psychologist. So don't worry, I've got both. And I've got both their cell phone numbers. That is my experience with perimenopause so far. Here's the interview with Dr. Jila Senemar. Her contact information is in the show notes. I will make sure she is tagged on Instagram so you can reach out to her if you would like to. Of course, reach out to me if you have questions for me, if you would like to correct me on something, as you guys like to do. And I genuinely appreciate. My DMs are always open. I love hearing from you guys all the time about everything. All right, let's get into it. Hey, listeners, it's Heather here with a quick message before we get into the rest of the episode. I have been blown away by the level of support from you guys. I love seeing how much the topics resonate with all of you and hearing how the episodes make you feel seen. I genuinely appreciate the outpouring of support from everyone. If you've been enjoying the show, there are a few ways you can continue to support the podcast and the team behind it. If you aren't already, follow us on Instagram at the Midlife Moves Podcast. For more behind-the-scenes info on the show and our guests, check out our website, midlifemoves.co. Reviews go a long way. I'd really appreciate a rating and a review on the podcast platform of your choice. And finally, check out the merch store. It's a fantastic way to rep the podcast and help support the team that makes these episodes possible. We've got some great designs for t-shirts and totes available there. Thank you all again so much and enjoy the rest of the episode. Dr. Jila, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
I reached out to you on Instagram because after I had an opportunity to go through your page, and I was like, I want to talk to her, and I want to talk to her about perimenopause, and you graciously accepted. So I'm very excited about this morning. So you're based in Miami.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Miami, Coral Gables.
You primarily focus on women in our age group, like this perimenopausal, and the conversation that we just had. Your focus is educating women on perimenopause and what we can expect, and that's a lot of what we're going to talk about this morning.
I love that topic. It's what I talk about all day long, every day. So, to be able to give more depth to it so people can understand what it is and how to navigate, I think is, at the core of why we're here today.
So we're just going to start at the beginning. What is perimenopause and how does it differ from menopause?
Perimenopause typically can begin in the late 30s, early 40s. It is a time frame before you actually go into menopause. Menopause, by definition, is one day where you haven't had a period for 12 full months. Then that day is called menopause. You're in menopause, and any day after that, you are postmenopausal. So for the remainder of your life, you're postmenopausal. Menopause, the average age in the US is around 51. Most women will have a 5 to 10 year journey prior to that, which is the perimenopausal time frame. That's why it makes sense where it's late 30s, early 40s. 5 to 10 years puts you into the 50 range. And that's why there's such a big window of opportunity to educate and help women, because things are moving. Early 40s, what's happening? Most people have had their kids, they have young children, they're running around, multitasking all day long, dropping off, picking up after school activities. And the hormone changes are happening in the background, but women aren't realizing that that's what it is. So a lot of the symptoms that come out in the perimenopausal time frame, women tend to write off as, I'm just more stressed. I'm just, I'm juggling a lot of things, but it's just life and it's going to be okay. So they struggle through it. And the goal is to, open up their eyes to really what's going on in the background with the hormonal changes. You still have hormones. Your ovaries are still producing your estrogen, your progesterone, and testosterone. But the problem with it is the amount that is being produced on a daily is not as regulated as it used to be. And hence the symptoms are more amplified and more in your face, where you're like, I just don't feel right. And it does take a few episodes of different things happening for women to kind of, the light bulb to go off and say, I think this is more than just life.
Yeah.
I think there's something else in the background.
What are the symptoms that women brush off most commonly, but should be paying attention to?
A lot of it, I think, with perimenopause is, we're not talking hot flash. We're not talking about lack of period. We're talking about cycle irregularity, meaning they're getting them, but they're not as regular as they used to be. They're either further in between. So instead of every 28 days, 30, now they're every 40 days. So that's one type of irregularity they can have. Another kind could be they used to have really heavy periods and now they're 1 or 2 days. Or they had lighter periods and now they're longer. And again, these little changes, and they're like, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. So they kind of brush that off. Others will have no cycle irregularity, so I don't want them to hyper focus on that. The one thing that is kind of common in the perimenopause era is mood changes, mood irritability, kind of flying off the handle, being more short-tempered, short-fused with anyone and everyone around them. You're laughing because I know everybody relates to that. You're like, I'm normally better controlled. And now it's just, imagine your PMS, where right before your period, where you're more sensitive, you're more irritable, magnify it. And now apply to the whole month. So it's not just right before the period. It can be any point in time during the month. So these are the little variations that start to kind of creep up during this time frame. And again, we brush it off. And the way I see women present with it is something's going on at work. And then they come in and like, I almost lost my job. Or I was passed over for a promotion because of these things happening in the background. And no one's realizing, hey, this is not her. Something else is happening. Let's address it accordingly. So these are the nuances that, we see as a healthcare provider. Women on their own, they don't pick up on it because, again, we are so programmed to multitasking, doing everything, providing for everyone, that we're not paying attention.
No, you just think it's life. You're like, oh, I'm really stressed out. There's so much going on. Yeah. I just need to make it through this week.
Exactly. And that's what happened. It's like day to day. You're just basically making it through the day to get to the next thing, to the next thing. And that can build up. And you can honestly look back. I've had patients look back and tell me they've been going through it for 5 to 7 years, where they really haven't lived their life to its full potential because they're struggling with so many of these things in the background. And like you said, they're just going from thing to thing, day to day. Let me just get through this soccer tournament. Let me get through that. Let me get the kids through X, Y, and Z, and then it'll calm down. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, maybe it escalates. Then it can affect your sleep. So now you're not sleeping well at night. Then you're tired the next day, right? Then what happens? This vicious cycle is increasing inflammation internally, and you start getting that midlife weight gain that just doesn't budge. So these are all the background factors that I see that women aren't seeing typically. And with more conversations, more education on different platforms, podcasts, social media, whatever have you, women are waking up like, oh, wait, hold on. And now I've seen a change in my own practice where women are coming in and like, I think I'm in perimenopause, and they're 42 years old. And I ask, I love that. Tell me why.
Yeah.
And again, women are concrete. You give us data, we know what to do with it, we know how to interpret, and we know what to do. Unfortunately, there is really no data points for perimenopause. I can run a full panel of labs. Most of the time, they're normal.
Right.
And that's the other brush off that tends to happen from like another perspective, where they go to their primary care and they say, thyroid's fine and your hormones are normal. So there's nothing wrong with you. And you don't have hot flashes and you have periods. You're not there.
I experienced that myself.
What happened?
I went and I said, I'm having these symptoms. I don't remember at what point exactly what the symptoms were. And he was like, you're too young. I was probably 41 or 42. And I was like, I don't think I'm too young.
Yeah.
And this year, finally, I went back and I said, these are my symptoms. And he actually was like, let's talk about hormones. So this is the same doctor. So he's, there is a shift.
There's a shift.
But I had the same thing happen. You're too young. I was like, well, something's happening with my body.
Right. And women know, especially after you've had a child, even if you haven't had a kid, as we get older, we tend to become more in tune with our bodies. Where I remember people would be like, oh, I know when I'm ovulating. And I was like, really? You do? Like, how does, good for you. I've never experienced that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until much later where that actually did happen, but that was after I had my kids. I was like, oh, I think this is what they mean when they say they know they're ovulating. I get it now. So I definitely have realized that we become more in tune with our bodies as we get older. And some women have always been in tune with their body, and it even intensifies more as they're going through midlife changes. So to just dismiss them, I think, is wrong on every level. And again, women's health has been dismissed for far too long. And that's why we're here having these conversations. But we know better. And what I tell patients is, if somebody is dismissing you like that, then just find somebody else. There's plenty of providers. Even yours decided to go past it and decided, let me re-educate myself.
Yeah.
And that's, I'm hoping more will become that way. That way we can help more people on the front lines, because it's not just an OBGYN's job. It's a primary care physician's job. It's, anyone who takes care, family practitioners, general practitioners, they all need to be in on this so we can help more women. How many times do you really go to your gyno? Once a year.
Yeah.
And you go for your mammogram, you go for your pap most of the time after you're done having your children. And so it's not just on one, the onus is on really everyone. That way there's more access for patients. And so if primary cares, I even have some cardiologists who are picking up and they're like, you know what, I think this is what it is and I can help you, or we can find you a provider that is specialized and can help you with this.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, because it has to be a whole body thing, right? It has to affect everything.
Yeah. You have estrogen receptors everywhere, from your brain all the way to the blood vessels around your heart, your bones, your skin, vaginal tissue, Your joints, there's estrogen receptors everywhere. That's why it affects every organ system. And it affects 3 of the biggest causes of mortality of women after age 50, which is number 1 is heart disease, number 2 is osteoporosis and fractures, and number 3 is dementia. Okay, so it affects organ systems in a major way. And the goal for hormone therapy, and this is what I really trying to get this point across to patients, is it's not just for symptom relief. It's not just because there are herbals, there are other natural remedies that you can use to alleviate hot flashes,
right,
to alleviate sleep disturbances, but that only covers the symptom. We are not treating what's going to happen to your heart and your bones due to lack of estrogen as you go through this process. As you hit 45, 50, estrogen levels start to decline. And as that happens, there's less and less for the bone. You lose bone density, and the heart vessels start becoming more stiff, and so they can have more plaque formation in them. So it's affecting everything internally. A lot of women will see an elevation in their bad cholesterol all of a sudden in their 40s, whereas before that, they never had any lipid panel abnormalities. I'm talking about LDL, HDL, triglycerides. And they're like, but I'm eating the same. I'm exercising the same. Nothing's changed. Why is my LDL cholesterol elevated all of a sudden? And these are all parts of the internal dialogue that's going on due to that lack of estrogen. So the end result of any provider for their patient should be, this is about your health and longevity. This is about keeping you healthy in your 60s, 70s, and 80s. That way you don't end up with heart disease. You don't end up with osteoporotic fractures that most women, 30%, will not recover fully from. And some will lead to other sequelae, and they can have like a pulmonary embolism, and they can succumb to that. And so there are so many different aspects to this conversation that it needs to really be, done in a way where it's understood. Women are allowed to ask questions and then make that determination for them. Yeah, is this for me? Or, do I want to wait on this? In the perimenopause stage, it could just be some minor symptoms, but as long as they've had the conversation and they're alerted to what could happen down the road, I think that helps women to make a decision for themselves. It may not be that day. It may be in a few years down the road where they're like, I think now I'm ready to, start tackling some hormone therapy. Or it could be even when they wait till they get to 51, where they've actually gone through menopause and now the symptoms are more severe. And they're like, okay, I've done everything with lifestyle modification. I've exercised. I've done the natural route, and it's gotten me to this point. Now I want to do better for myself. Then you can add in the hormone component.
So like I strength train, and part of I was talking to a couple of women in the gym, and they were like, what are you training for? And I don't know why I said, but I was like, menopause, but which is accurate. Like I want to age well. Like I want to age well. And so now like that's it, like that is a large conversation in the fitness community. Like strength training will help you through menopause, and with that longevity aspect, is that like how much of that is accurate, and how much will that take you through, and how much more assistance do people need?
That is such a key factor that has been underplayed for so long, because back in the 80s, 90s, what was the goal? Skinny.
Thin.
Skinny is in, thin is in, cardio is the way to go. And that's what we all did. And honestly, I was a part of that, because I remember that. I had a, Stairmaster, treadmill, you name it, I had it. And I did it. And it worked. Unfortunately, what happens is, as we get older, as the estrogen declines, then you also not only lose bone, but you lose muscle mass. That muscle's an organ. It burns calories, and that's what you need. And it helps keep your body, your strength, your core strength, your skeletal strength. So we want that muscle mass there. It gets harder and harder as we get older to build that muscle mass. So that's why in your 30s and 40s is really where you should be pushing hard to build and maintain your muscle going forward. That muscle is going, when you don't have it or there's lack of it, sarcopenia is what we call it. There's a term for everything. And there's a whole musculoskeletal syndrome of menopause that was, developed by Dr. Vonda Wright, who's up in Orlando, an orthopedic surgeon, who realized this is what was happening as she was taking care of her patients. So there is a lot of information and a lot of truth to the statement that you made is, I'm building strength to be able to get through menopause in a great way, in a very strong manner, because that's what you need. That whole weight gain that we just talked about, you have that muscle mass built up. The muscle is going to help you burn off the calories. That way you can maintain weight. Okay. That's one way. Another thing it can do is it keeps you from falling and injuring yourself. So having those fractures, okay, it's flexibility, it's strength, it's agility, it's all of those things that's going to basically keep you out of the nursing home and using a walker when you're in your 70s and 80s. The goal is long-term. Don't look at it today. Don't look at it tomorrow. Don't look at a number on a scale. That's why we don't use BMI anymore. We're using, more measurements, visceral fat percentiles, muscle mass percentiles, and seeing how are those composition components of your body. So we do in bodies. I really rely on that for my patients, is to kind of give them the data point again. This is where we're at. Now I need you to go strength train, and then we're going to reevaluate in a few months. The issue is a lot of women are used to cardio training, and it's really hard to change that mindset. And what happens, and I see it day in and day out, they increase the cardio, they decrease the food intake, so the calories. So they're really in a starvation mode, killing themselves at the gym. And what's happening is the opposite of what used to happen, is they would lose the weight quickly, good, moving on. Now the weight keeps climbing. The scale goes up, they get frustrated, they actually they get more puffy and more inflamed because the body isn't responding the way it did. And again, there's a hormonal metabolic component to all of this. It's not just a one-sided equation, is what I say. I'm like, it's not just your hormones, it's the hormones leading to metabolic dysfunction. Then there's a cardiometabolic component to all of this. So we really need to be careful with how we, address women and guide them appropriately to change that mindset, to do more strength training, do the walks. That's your cardio. Okay. There's a whole component of adding the weighted vest, because that will add resistance to the joints. And, again, like we talk about, there's pros and cons to everything, but I don't want everyone to jump on one trend or another. It's what is going to work for them, and what is that they are going to maintain and do and be consistent with. It's consistency. It's doing it correctly with the right mindset. Oh, I have to go work out. No, you should enjoy working out. It should become a lifestyle modification. It's a part of your daily routine. You should like it, because you get these happy endorphins after working out, and you just feel good about everything. So I tell patients, let's just start with a walk. I have to meet them where they're at. I'm like, what are you doing? What have you done? What have you not? And most women, either they're just doing the bare minimum, or they take a class here or there. So I tell them, listen, let's start with the walking. Then we're going to get you a dedicated trainer in midlife who knows what they're talking about. Not just anyone. It needs to be somebody understanding the hormonal shifts, the changes, and how to appropriately, safely get you to lift weights to help. And you do that 2-3 times a week. You do I like a potpourri of workouts. So you do a little bit of this to make sure the 2-3 days of this strength training, the resistance, the weights, whatever you want to call it, are in there. And then the rest, you can do your Pilates if you love Pilates. You can go walking, you can go swimming, you can go mountain biking, whatever it is. But that is the formula that is going to give you that strength to be able to not have a fall and, fracture your hip and end up in a wheelchair.
I love that, because I like strength training and I hate cardio. So I go for walks for my cardio, just to
Just to get it
check
done.
off the box. Yeah.
Right.
Or I'll go
Right.
for a hike or something, something like
Mm-hmm.
that. But yeah, I couldn't get into anything because I thought that as a woman, like you had to do cardio. It was like a HIIT class. You had to do a
Mm-hmm.
HIIT class or you had to run. And I hate running and I hate HIIT. So
Mm-hmm.
so once I found strength training, like that was where I found, like a passion for fitness.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so that weight gain, I will say, even with the amount of training that I do, I notice the weight gain around my middle. Now, granted, I've had 4 children.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's going to like I'm never going to be flat stomached again. That ship has sailed. Why does that happen? Like I know that women, like I know that we need to have something there, right? Like we should,
a protective kind of barrier thing. Yes.
But why does that happen and how can we minimize that?
So there's different kinds of fat that we gain. There's subcutaneous fat, which is that little fluff you get after having kids and things like that. Like you said, it never goes back to being like a flat stomach. Yeah. It's just subcutaneous, meaning it's right below the skin. That is not a dangerous type of fat. The one that we're talking about that happens in midlife is visceral fat. And what that means is the fat cells go and sit around your organs, and that's what makes them detrimental to your health. Again, it's more on an internal side of it, not an external side. The way it presents is like a tire around the midsection or things popping out where they weren't there before. You're like, okay, what is all of this? Yes. Or the clothes fit to a point and then it doesn't fit anymore. Like it just doesn't close. Like it'll come up the legs, but then doesn't close around the midsection. Yeah. And that's why we do like the waist to hip ratio to see, is this really the visceral fat or is it something else going on? The reason it happens is, again, that hormonal metabolic dysfunction that's happening on a cellular level, and your body basically is inflamed. It has this little bit of insulin resistance that's going on internally. Insulin opens up the cells, so the glucose from your food goes into the cell and is burnt off as energy for you, so you can sustain throughout the day. When your body doesn't recognize the insulin that your pancreas is producing naturally, what happens is the glucose in your bloodstream, instead of being used, gets stored as fat. Mm-hmm. So it sits around the organs and becomes detrimental and a health hazard. What do we need to do? We need to change that inflammatory response that's going on internally and minimize that insulin resistance. Okay. So it's on a more severe end of that spectrum, you become diabetic, basically. So that's kind of where this can lead to if left unaddressed or not being addressed by your healthcare provider, not picking up on it. And again, there are little markers you can do on a blood test where it can tell you all of this. You do, insulin resistance, and you can check a fasting insulin glucose ratio. You can check metabolic components like your C-reactive protein. All of these little metabolites will tell us, markers will tell us, hey, somebody does have a little inflammation going on, and how do we address it? Mm-hmm. So now you know what it is. Now you have the marker. What do we do about it? Mm-hmm. It's literally changing the conversation. It's lifestyle modifications. It's getting in that sleep. These are little tweaks that we laugh at. And then when you actually put it into perspective and apply it, it works. Because within 3 to 6 months, you see everything kind of shifting back. And you're like, okay, sleeping 8 to 10 hours of getting that deep sleep. Because what happens in sleep? Your body rests, your cells regenerate, and it's able to function the way it's supposed to. And it lowers your cortisol and your inflammation, basically. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, going for a walk. These little things that we talk about, it may seem trivial, but walking after you eat for 10, 15 minutes changes the whole glucose. And that's why a lot of women are wearing the continuous glucose monitors. You can see the spikes in your glucose levels after you eat. And you can see how that spike is kind of tapered down if you go for a walk, because your body's able to use that glucose faster and not store it. So it's these little tweaks. And also, what are we eating? I don't want you eating lettuce all day long. You need that darn protein. Eating protein on its own, what you really need per day is a full-time job. to make sure you get it.
I eat 140 grams of protein a day, and it is work to do that. Like
to get it in, right?
To get it in. Like there's days I'm like, oh my God, if I eat another piece of chicken, I'm gonna be sick. Yeah.
Yeah. That again, it's work. Remember how we used to be with water intake? It was like, oh my God, the big jugs you would walk around
the
with.
gallon bottles. Yeah.
The gallon bottles. Okay,
yes.
But now it's become normal. I don't know about you, but I remember I never took water to school when I was a kid.
No.
I think we just drank from the water fountain. Or you drank milk, the little cartons.
Yes.
Now it's like the Stanleys and the this and the that.
Yeah.
So we modified where now it's commonplace to have water. Protein needs to become the same kind of, easy, just part of your life. And it doesn't mean you have to be eating, chugging eggs all day long or, eating chicken, as much as you can. Again, little things. And, different foods have different protein components. There's, plant protein, there's animal protein, and each one your body will use and metabolize differently. So those are the key factors to really combating this midlife change, weight component. And then again, yes, there are GLP-1s that are part of the conversation for certain situations. Resistance, this, that, you try everything and you're banging your head against the wall. There is a place for that conversation. And I have it with my patients, but again, it's very individualized and it's a one-on-one situation.
My rule with protein is as long as every meal or snack that I have has protein in it. That's kind of how I work it in.
And that's how you get it all in.
Like a snack, as long as the snack has protein somewhere.
Right,
then it's
exactly.
full.
You're doing it.
Cottage cheese is the other one I'm sick of. I'm tired of cottage cheese.
I can't believe they're making cottage cheese, wraps now. You just put it in. It looks too easy. I don't know. I have to try it.
It's real gross. It's all really gross right now.
I know.
For me anyway. So the last thing I think is important to touch on, I know that we're coming up to the end of time and I appreciate you spending this time with me. The emotional health aspect. Yeah. I can tell you that I went through a period of like severe depression, and my husband and I had the conversation a number of times, like, is this depression or is this a hormonal shift? And that is actually what led to this podcast. That cycle and that experience. So going through like anxiety and depression and all of those things is fairly normal in the perimenopausal timeframe. How does somebody know if it is like the hormones or if it's actually, like something more?
It's and remember at the beginning when we talked about symptoms, the mental health component is the one that presents. Most women present with it. And what we do know, and there's research showing this, is women with a history of depression in the past, ADHD, anxiety disorders, postpartum depression, they are at a higher rate of relapsing in this perimenopause stage. So we really need to be focused and make sure we don't miss this opportunity to kind of guide them and let them know that it's not all in their head. A lot of patients with, let's say, ADHD who are on medication, their medication is helping them. It's controlling everything. As they get older and they get into perimenopause, they realize the medication doesn't work the same anymore. And that's not because the medication is not working. It's actually their ADHD is exaggerated now because of the hormonal changes. So it's not, remember, in menopause, the hormones decline. In perimenopause, they're fluctuating to extremes. So it's an extreme high or an extreme low. And that is where they're being affected. And that's what's presenting with these, low lows where they're like depressed and they can't even come out of it. And they're like, something major bad is going to happen to me or to my family. So that's where we need to, again, have the conversations and let them know it's not you, it's your hormones are acting up. We need to talk about this. We need to address it. And a lot of times, I think once they have the conversation and they realize they're not alone and that everybody does experience some version of it, it helps.
Yeah.
And with the right support from family, having a partner who understands what's going on is half the battle. Because I think on the other side, men have no idea what's going on. And they don't know what happened to their partner that used to love them and they were fine. And now all of a sudden it's like, it's a new person and they don't relate to that. And unless they are also educated and understand that these hormone changes can be so drastic. It can really impact a relationship. So again, it needs to be a conversation had with your provider. That way you realize you're not alone. And okay, let me try. And if we can kind of regulate the hormones better, their symptoms improve. Now, if you do that and the hormones are initiated and they do start to feel better, but there's still components of depression or anxiety, then that's a different discussion. And they may need other, medications added in.
Right.
But to just start right off the bat with an anxiolytic medication or an antidepressant really isn't the right answer.
If there's one thing that you would leave our listeners with, you want them to know, what would that be?
This isn't the end for women. I don't want them to throw in the towel, because that's what a lot, they feel that way. Like, you just get to this point, you're like, what's the point? I don't feel good. I'm gaining weight. I think it is what it is. No, this isn't it. That's not the solution. That's not the answer. We actually become better versions of ourselves in this transition. And it really unlocks certain things that have been kind of like stuck deep down inside, certain, characteristics and talents that you didn't even know you had. So honestly, it's a new, maybe elevated version of yourself that's about to come out. So let it.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Let it come out. Okay. I see women. I'm like, listen, this is the time to dig in and realize what makes me happy. What is it that makes me get out of bed and jump and go and do something today? That's the passion that I want you to have. And I want you to take that and take care of yourself. So all these things that you hear about self-care, I'm number one. Yes to it all, because we are women. We're not done. And we have more work to do. And there's so much we can do out there right now. It's really whatever your passion is, just pursue it, and don't let hormones get you down. That's not the end. That's not the conversation. That's just like, another part of being a woman. We go through all of these shifts and changes because we're evolving. We're becoming a different version. And I'm excited for women to just experience that.
I love that. We've got what, like 40 more years.
Oh,
we have an entire lifetime ahead of us.
We have a whole nother half to go.
Yes.
And because number one, we are living longer and longer. Our life expectancy has surpassed our mothers and our grandmothers. So how do you want to live that? You want to live it with intention, with quality, and with like just passion.
Yes.
Again, we're done having kids. Financially, we're all fine. Okay. Our kids are older.
And you don't have to worry about getting pregnant.
So come on. Don't throw in the towel just yet. Get ready. Like, enjoy it. Honestly, that's what women need to know. That's why I always say, I don't want you to just get through it. You're going to thrive and you're going to shine on the other side of this thing, because you don't even know what's about to come your way. So just be open to it.
I love it. I agree with everything you just said.
Good. I'm glad.
Co-sign.
Yes.
So you have a new practice launching in January. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? And can you tell my listeners how to find you on the socials, or however you'd like them to find you?
So on social media, it's just my name, Dr. Jila Senemar, on Instagram. The new practice is basically my way of giving back to women. All my patients that I've seen for over 25 years, I've listened to them to see what is it that they really want and how can I provide that for them. Everything we just talked about, this is not a 10, 15-minute visit. This is more. This is longer. It's more involved. So the new practice that is launching in January is basically a holistic approach to women's health from head to toe. Basically, I will be their healthcare provider, from being their primary care doctor, being their gynecologist, and being their hormone specialist. And I look at the woman as a whole. not just as components, as organ systems. I look at everything. Their mental health and well-being. How can I improve that for them? Their heart health, their bone health. I do all of the testing. I do everything. And I have a collaborative doctors that I work with that, should I need to refer them for certain situations, that's all part of what we do here. It's much smaller, on a much smaller scale. That way I can really give the time that the patients deserve. And it's more comprehensive, meaning, over the year, they can come as many times as they need to be seen. I do virtual visits with them. So it's really digging deep into the midlife woman and over. And it's also for some of the younger women who are done having children and they really want a roadmap to map it out so they go through this smoothly. They're coming here and they're like, you know what? This is what I want. I want to invest in my health. And I want to do it with you. And, because I'm still evolving and learning as we go. I'm doing different certifications just to keep ahead of it. So that way I can provide the best care for my patients. I'm going to be done doing my deliveries of babies by the end of this year and just taking care of the women after having their children.
Well, that sounds really cool. And actually, as you were saying that, I was like, I wonder if there's a doctor like that in my area. So I'll have all of that information listed in the show notes as well for everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of resources that we can provide for women to look for providers who are certified to help in this midlife range.
Oh, that's exciting. That's necessary. What a necessary service.
And that's what it was. I realized, what am I missing? And what are we not providing for women? I said, okay, I'm just going to have to do it myself.
I'm just going to have to do it myself. Because we're women, and that's what we do.
That's what we do. We reinvent, and we keep going, That's
we get it
do
done.
We retire? Not really.
Yes.
No, we come up with something else to do.
That's right. That's right. Thank you so much for joining me today. This was an excellent conversation.
Thank you for having me.
That's it for this episode. If you had fun, learned something, or just feel a little less alone in the chaos, make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss what's next. And if you want to keep the conversation going, come find me on Instagram @HeatherMoves_, because midlife is way more fun when we do it together. Until next time, keep moving forward, or at least keep moving. See ya.